So today I'm going to be talking about Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom. So this book I read a while back, but the sequel, Hollow City, just came out this month and I wanted to reread the first book before I read the second one because it's been a while and my memory is bad. I really enjoyed this book the first time I read it, and the second time was just as good, if not better. Basically, the main character of this book is Jacob Portman. He's 16 years old and his grandfather was a war veteran. He escaped Russia or something, and he lived in a foster home for a while with refugee children, and then he fought in World War II, and then eventually he made it to the States, settled down, had a family, and eventually Jacob's dad was born, and then Jacob was born, and so begins Jacob's story. So his grandfather would tell him all these stories about how he fought monsters and about all the weird children he lived with in the foster home, and just these really obscure tales. And Jacob loved them, and he developed this love for adventure. But as he got older, he realized these stories probably not true. They're just fairy tales. My grandfather is an old war veteran and he's losing his mind, which is basically how everyone else saw his grandpa. But it turns out that Jacob's grandpa wasn't so insane after all. His stories have some truth to it. This story chronicles Jacob discovering that truth. Love this book. It is really good. I highly recommend. It's really creepy, so if you get scared easily, maybe you shouldn't read this, but it's a really great book. And I forgot to mention earlier, throughout the book there are these vintage photographs. I want to find you one. I don't know, can you see that? Which makes for a really great story because the balance of the photos and the story, they work so well together, and it's beautiful, and it makes for a really good dark tale. So I highly recommend. I love photography, so having the photos throughout the books really was really fun for me because I've never seen that done before, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. Now, if you don't want to be spoiled, then go away because I'm going to be talking a little more about what goes down in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Now that they're gone, let's talk. So when Jacob comes home and he finds his grandfather lying in the grass and he's bleeding and he's about to die, and he whispers his last words, which I'm going to read to you just to refresh your memory. Find the bird in the loop on the other side of the old man's grave, September 3rd, 1940. Emerson, the letter. Tell them what happened, Jacob. Okay, so those are his grandfather's last words, and I'm like, okay, what? Like, I read the book before, but I totally just forgot what they meant. But Jacob has to figure out what that message means, and it sort of haunts him. His grandfather whispers those last words, and then he dies. And then Jacob sees the hollow in the trees, and it's so scary and creepy with the black eyes and the tentacles, and I was like, oh god, like, ugh. So they try to convince him he's crazy, and he starts to believe it himself, but then he decides, what's best for him is to go to the island of Wales and to figure out what happened to his grandpa. And you start to see a little more of Jacob's relationship with his father, which I think is, oh man, it's sad because it wasn't really fleshed out that much, but it seems like they had sort of a bond and his father was more understanding of him. I didn't feel bad for Jacob. I felt worse for his grandfather because everyone thought he was insane, and he was probably the person that was best fit to fight these monsters. He was a hero and his family saw him as this lunatic, which was really sad, but anyway, that's off topic. So, Jacob. I like how scared he gets at times. Like this, he's not like this fearless hero. He's just scared. He's human, which I really like about him. Makes him relatable, and he seems like a pretty average guy, you know. And oh my god, okay, Miss Peregrine, oh, I love her so much. I don't know, she's like this really great motherly character, and she's stern, but she's got such a big heart, and she's really good at answering Jacob's questions and sort of easing his mind, and she's really patient with him too. So I think Miss Peregrine was really good at dealing with all Jacob's questions and his misconceptions about the place. My favorite part is when the kids do that talent show for Jacob, because you really get to see all the different types of kids that live in the home and their talents. And there's Olive, the girl that floats, and there's Millard, who's obviously invisible. Emma, who, has the fire, Miss Peregrine changing from a bird to a grown woman. Just all these really cool characters, and I was like, oh man, these kids are awesome. So I loved discovering all these kids' talents and getting to know them more. Let's talk about the romance between Emma and Jacob. It's cute, but it's a little creepy because Emma had that relationship with Abe and she loved him for so many years even after he left off to the war. I guess that's a really hard thing to face when she was stuck in this perpetual loop under Miss Peregrine's care, which although it's a paradise, it's really fun. She's not going anywhere. She's staying a teenager even though she's really 88 years old. And it really showed when she first met Jacob and he was telling her, I'm Abe's grandson. Emma didn't want to believe him and she threatened him and she was really upset because if she admitted that Jacob was Abe's grandson, then that would be admitting Abe had a life without her and it would be admitting that she lost him. But, Jacob and Emma start to have a thing. They really do form a connection. And I think maybe at first Emma saw Abe in Jacob and that's what attracted her to him. I think she starts to like Jacob for who he is instead of who his grandpa is over time, and it definitely shows by the end of it when she gives away this picture of her and Abe. She gives to Jacob's father when they are leaving the island, and she writes a letter to his father. She said she carried around that picture with her every day, but she said she didn't need it anymore, and I think that really shows that she's moved on from Abe and she's ready to be with Jacob. But at first it was kind of creepy because she's 88 years old and Jacob is 16. But she's still a teenager, I guess, so it's okay. But it's cute, so we'll let it go. That final battle, oh my god, it was so intense and just creepy. I had goosebumps and I was like, I couldn't stop reading, and oh my god, it's like, oh, it was insane. It was insane. Right, oh my god, fucker. So we find out that he is not only Dr. Golan, but Jacob's bus driver, and he played all these various characters in Jacob's life without Jacob ever knowing it, his gardener, and it was so creepy because how many people do you overlook? So that was like that dun dun dun, the right, and then he brings in his pet Hollow, and the two together, oh my god, like honestly, it was so scary. Jacob, he has the gun and he's pointing it at the right, and and I didn't know if he had the courage to shoot it. I honestly didn't know if he had the courage to shoot it, but he does, and he goes bam, and the right was killed. Miss Peregrine is stuck as a bird with Miss Avose, I believe, and they're like, oh no, what's happening? Why won't Miss Peregrine change? There must be something that's stopping her from changing. I don't know why. I mean, I think her wing is broken, or I don't know, there's something that's stopping her, which was really, disheartening because they're like, they need direction, and the only person of authority, the only real adult, is stuck a bird. So they go back to the house and it's destroyed. It's been bombed. The loop has been broken. It's stopped. It's no longer September 3rd, September 4th, which, I mean, they've been stuck in the loop for day after day after day, and they're free of it. So there's some sort of a liberation in the end. And also their caretaker is stuck a bird, so there's a lot of freedom, but they still are misguided and still have to figure out what direction they're going in, and the kids sail off into the distance, and that's how the first book ends. I hope you enjoyed this review. It was my first real one, like a real one. So let me know what you thought of it, or if you have any suggestions to offer, because I will gladly listen. See you guys soon.